All right, so I think I'm going to make a quick little small mention to everybody. I can't read all the comments. I can't even think about trying to answer any of them. 3/4, 9/10 of them, whatever. There's just thousands and thousands of them between YouTube, the social media pages, the app pages, emails. It's just a little overwhelming. I can't do it. Sorry. But anyways, I have noticed a few comments where people are wondering how I can have so many stories. Say, how can one person have so many stories? Well, just so you know, when I was in my early mid-20s, and the majority of people were thinking it was time to get married and settle down because the rest of the human herd did, I was actually thinking to myself, holy crap, I haven't even lived, I haven't done anything, not a chance I'm doing what all these other people are doing. And whatever it was inside me that drove me to it, I pursued the adventure lifestyle, and I also made it a point of I was going to go around this planet and take a big bite out of every slice of life I could find, and that's what I've done. So anybody who does that, and there's numerous people out there who have done more adventure things with their life than I have, you are going to obtain a pile of experiences and a shit pile of stories. And just in my outdoor career alone, guiding, I mean, my God, think about it. You go 20 years of riding into the remote northern Rocky Mountains or the Yukon or wherever, or getting dumped off in Kodiak or in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, in float planes, endless adventures, and do it for 120 to 130, 40 days straight for years. You are going to experience some 1 in a million experiences that the majority of the population just don't ever get a chance to see. I would never even dream it possible, you know, and that's what I've done. You know, I didn't get married, didn't have children, and I went for it, and I haven't stopped. So for all you that are wondering how one person can have so many stories, that's why. So anyways, I got another quick story I'll share with you from my neck of the woods, from my neighborhood. And it was from a native guy. And this will be interesting for a lot of people just to understand the tone and the delivery of speech. So this is about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it was back when I was intentionally looking into this topic. I was up behind where I explained in a previous video the new site, the native community not far from where I live. It was actually springtime and bear season as well. And I went and I drove up above the community to their old dump site. There used to have a dump there, like a wide open dump. No gate around it, no fence, no nothing, just bears all over the place, dirt everywhere, crap everywhere. And I thought, maybe because I know that's obviously, you know, there's so many sightings around there, it's ridiculous. So I thought I'd go up there and have a little snoop around. Maybe I'd see some big bears I could videotape or something, or see some tracks, you never know. So I went up there, and I had a big camera with me, and so I left on the tailgate of the truck for a second while I walked up ahead to this chunk of soft dirt. And while I was up there, I heard a truck coming. And I remembered I left this expensive camera on the tailgate of the truck. I better get back to the truck. I got back there, and it was a young native guy, great guy, and he was an employee of the band, and he had the band's work truck with him. And he said that he saw my truck as he's driving along the dirt road there, and saw the video camera on the box of the truck, and blah, blah, blah. So I figured somebody was there, came over. And we started talking, real nice guy. And he goes, oh, what are you doing? And I go, well, I was gonna maybe fill some bears, and don't laugh, but I thought maybe there might be some Sasquatch tracks up here on this dump site I might be able to find and film or something. And right away, just casual as casual could be, he goes, oh no, they're down by the river right now. It's like that. I'm like, what? They're what? He goes, yeah, they're down by the river right now, getting the early spring salmon and stuff. It's kind of funny, we don't really talk to white people about the Sasquatch, because the white people laugh and think they don't believe these things are here. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm not your average white person, dude, and I don't really talk to them either. And I've seen them before. I've seen one, pretty certain I've seen two. And he goes, yeah, I've seen them 3 times. He says, anyways, yeah, they're down by the river right now. There's 2 adults and a young one down there. And he's just talking to me as if we're talking about frickin' deer in the yard, which 99% of the native population does, because they've known for generations about these beings running around the forest, and we haven't. Okay? Take note of that one. And before you start laughing and shitting all over this video, just remember, I'm just the messenger. All right? I'm the messenger. And if you're going to be watching these videos, you either have an interest or you don't, or you know of these things or you don't. And as far as the title of being a believer, or do you believe, I don't use that word because once you have seen these things, you know, it's whether or not you know about them, or what do you know about them. It's not a belief, okay? It's not a religion. It's just a real item. It's as real as that tree right there. It's just all there is to it. Anyways, get along the story. So obviously this fella and I had a great conversation, and it was funny how he explained to me that down at the Birkenhead River, when the salmon are in there, he said that they could see where the two adult footprints were going into the river. They're walking down the river, going in the river and coming back out and coming out, and the younger one was staying on the bank. And he said you could see where they took the rotten, slimy, disgusting salmon that were on the edge of the river bank, high and dry. You could see plainly that they were picking those up and taking them. They were taking the nasty, disgusting, rotten fish off the bank. How amazing is that? How disgusting is that? I mean, and who would ever thought that? It's just the way it is. I mean, I guess it's protein, it's a meal. I guess these things aren't picky, who knows? And it's funny, I do remember one of his sightings he told me about. I mean, it's nothing exciting really, but he told me he was up near Joffrey Lakes, which again is up the Joffrey Lake Highway, which is basically right across the road from my buddy ran into one of those things, deer hunting on the other side of the highway. And he said he was deer hunting, and he said he basically had his pants down, handful of toilet paper, and looked up, and this thing, he said it was about 30 feet away from him, squatting down looking at him. And he said it was reddish brown. And he said that when he looked at it, he looked back at him, it just rose up. He said it was well over 8 feet tall, reddish brown, and it turned around and walked away from him, disappeared in the timber. And you know, if somebody was gonna make up a goddamn story, he could make up something a lot better than that one. I mean, anyway, it's not even a factor in these stories. He told me as well, I was telling him where I had run into these things, and I told him a few of the places where I just don't go anymore. And he agreed. He had two of the places that I said I don't go near anymore. He didn't either. And he also said as well, he goes, yeah, I don't go near Joffrey anymore. I just don't go near there. That was pretty interesting. And on the note of the taking the rancid salmon thing, I'm going to tell you another random experience I had very, very close to there. You could actually see where we did this with this dead sheep from where I was talking to this young fella, and it was across another valley and up on an old abandoned logged out area. And a friend of mine had a dead sheep, and it was about a 350-pound mature dead ewe, and it was disgusting, bloated the hell up and rancid. And he had it in his truck when we had to get rid of it. So I thought about that clear cut spot, and I go, let's put it up in that clear cut, and we'll throw up a trail camera on it later on and see what predators hit it or whatever, right? Not even thinking of anything weird. And we drove up there, 4x4 up there. It's a deactivated road, dead end road, no reason to go up there. And this thing, mind you, this sheep was bloated, rotten, stinking, and absolutely nasty. Far beyond any human consumption mode. Not a human on the planet would want anything to do with this thing. And it was springtime. So we drove up there, and we both grabbed a leg and launched it out of the truck. And where we dropped it was probably 200, 250 yards circumference away from any bush, all the way around, just smack dab in the middle. And a human being, you're not going to drag that sucker away. And why would you? So anyway, we left it there, and I think 1 week later, we went back to go see if anything, we forgot all about it. It was just a random thing. Here's this dead sheep, let's go get rid of it. So we did. It wasn't like it was a plan. It wasn't like, all right, we got this dead sheep. So why I'm saying that is just explaining we weren't really thinking about it. It wasn't too big of a deal. But we went back up there, and it's gone. Like, it was gone. And I can tell you right now what predators do and how predators feed on anything in the woods is this. Now black bear, I've had numerous black bears take leftover carcasses from me in the past, and what they normally do is they'll drag branches and strip branches off little Christmas trees and bring green bows over, and they'll actually cover up a kill. I've seen a black bear do that, watched him do that, and it took about a week later after a deer kill, I come up on a big red bear, and he'd done that. Same thing with cougar. Cougar will scratch and try to cover it up a little bit and help with and what they're doing is they're trying to keep the birds from annihilating that carcass. And a cougar will typically bury a kill if it wants to go back, and a cat will always open up the carcass and eat the heart and the liver and lick the blood out. That's one of their trademark moves, is what cats do. They love that easy, high protein meal. Now a grizzly bear will drag the carcass, feed on it right there possibly, but more times than not, the grizzly bear will grab the carcass, even a moose, and they will drag it to the nearest thick bush out of sight. They want that out of sight. And if it's too far, they'll rototill the ground up and they'll make a massive pile the size of a frickin' beaver dam of dirt on top of that kill, and they'll let it sit there and ferment, and they'll come back at nighttime and unbury it and feed on it. And that's what grizzly bears do. And if they don't bury it right there, they'll drag it into the nearest thick bushes. And they don't drag it into the thick bushes and keep going 100 yards. They'll drag it just inside the timber, just inside the willow, just inside the bush, and they'll leave it there and they'll lay on it and keep feeding on it till it's gone. And wolves, when wolves hit a carcass or a kill, it's a frickin' mess. Wolves shred every single carcass to bits, pull everything apart, yank it apart, shred it apart, tear it apart, fight over it. And it's just an absolute mess of carnage. And they grind up the bones. They'll grind up the skeleton. They'll eat every single bit of it. If the wolf pack's that hungry, they will clean up the entire carcass, and all you find is the gut bag, fur everywhere, maybe little chunks of hide, a couple grinds of bones, teeth, and toes. And that is your typical wolf trademark signature, okay? Knowing all of these factors with various wild predators and kills, when we went up to where the sheep was, there wasn't one piece of fur on the ground. There wasn't a drag mark. There wasn't little shards of meat. The ground wasn't disturbed. There was no drag mark. There was no nothing. But there is one piece of hide about that big, blue on one side, and blue meaning the flesh completely skinned off perfect or peeled off perfectly. And it wasn't cut with a knife. It wasn't like knife cut around the edges of the hide. It was just like, it was just really, really bizarre. I can't explain it. Let's just say for shits and giggles, a big being with a hand that wanted to have a look at it possibly just grabbed a handful of the hide, ripped it off, exposed the flesh, maybe sniffed that meat. Yep, I'm taking this, picked it up and left with it. Who knows? I don't know. But it's a possibility. But all I'm telling you is, after I described all of the signatures of all the known predators here, what they do with their carcass and the marks and the destruction that'll be left from where a kill is, it was just kind of alarming that the sheep was gone. On that note, 2 years ago, I met with a chief from a large First Nations band on the coast, and we were discussing a whole pile of issues with surplus wolves running around the community and annihilating everything in the valley, and we're going to team up together and do something about it. And he gave me permission to go up to a trap line that they own and start baiting so we could trap wolves up there that winter. Now, I had a farmer who donated a massive, monstrous domestic hog who had nothing but physical problems, and he was deceased, obviously. But the thing was so frickin' huge, it was absolutely stupid. Like, it's probably around 600 pounds. If I had to guess, probably around a 600-pound, massive chunk of nasty, ugly pork. And he used a forklift. You could hear the strain in this farm forklifts that picked it up and loaded this thing in my one-ton truck. And so I took it out to the coast there, hung a right, went up the valley, and I had a tow strap in my truck so I could get it out of the truck. And I did a couple half pitches around his back legs, and I backed up to the old hairpin turn on a deactivated logging road way up the valley, and I backed right out to the edge of it, the bank, where it went straight down into timber with trees, you know, small little Christmas trees down the bank. And I backed up, stretched the tow strap out and around a tree, came back and I hooked that end onto my ball hitch so that when I drove away, it would pull the hog out of the box of my truck and it would fly down the bank out of the truck. And I just ran down there, retrieved the tow strap off of his back legs, and then carried on. And take note, this is well into, I think it was December, might have been December now, but it was well past den up time for any bears. All the bears are in bed by now, and there's no sign of them up there anyway, and there's snow. So 2 weeks later, my buddy went up there. So 2 weeks later, that thing was gone. Not one sign of it being fed on, not one sign of it being cut open, chewed on, ripped apart, shredded up, dragged away, nothing. And for a human being to get rid of that thing, to even attempt to get it into a vehicle up there in the middle of nowhere, you would have to have a come-along, a block and tackle, huge trees, or a high-ab would be the only way to get in the box of a truck. And even if you were to drag it way back up that bank again, you are going to have to use a tow cable, latch onto it, and either drive away and leave a big mark and a big, huge drag mark up that bank from that thing. And it just wasn't there. There wasn't a sign of anything at all. It was gone. So moving along to one more little tidbit on that note. So I'm talking to a friend of mine about this, and he was talking to some other guys at work in that community on a job site, and they had told him that they were as well baiting wolves farther up the valley in the wintertime the year before. And they had a big bait pile going with 3 trail cameras on it. And they said they threw a 450 to 500 pound chunk of dead beef from a rancher, had thrown that on the pile. And they went back 2 weeks later and it was gone. There wasn't a footprint in the snow, and there wasn't a drag mark in the snow. And there wasn't one thing on all 3 trail cameras to show how it was missing. So there you go. There's a couple weird mentions of weird things that go on that are unexplainable, and I haven't the answers for. But some of you will find it interesting. Some of you may have a similar episode that happened that you witnessed. I don't know. Who knows? But there you go. There's another story and a few tidbits of big, huge chunks of decaying meat strangely going missing without a trace. I don't know. Go figure. Who knows? I don't know. I don't have the answers. Is what it is. There's another goofy story.